Okay, team. So Megan here, and I am actually out at the Headley Baird Centre for Teaching and Learning with Lisa, and Lisa's from the Network Student Engagement team. And so we're going to have a quick chat about what it means to be part of a multidisciplinary team and the types of multidisciplinary teams and support staff and professionals and health professionals and so on that we work with as teachers. And Lisa's got this fantastic resource here on the screen that we're going to have a look through as well. So Lisa, tell us a bit about you and a bit about NSET.
Great, thanks Megan. So I'm the Senior Director of NSET, and we support and service 89 schools within ACT. NSET stands for Network Student Engagement Team, which basically means that we are a multidisciplinary team that utilises interprofessional practice to model and collaborate supports for schools. What that looks like is that we interface with internal and external allied health professionals to improve and achieve better outcomes for our students within our system. NSET's been around in our system for approximately 10 years, and the evolution of that model and that service delivery has also evolved and become quite exciting. We now have a fantastic full complement of allied health professionals consisting of occupational therapists, speech and language pathologists, social workers, senior psychologists. We have 2 physiotherapists now. We also have allied health assistants, which support with the implementation of some of the recommendations that our speech and language pathologists and OTs put in. And we have operations officers as well as 2 NSET directors, which are equivalent to a deputy in a school. And then I support and oversee. There is an inclusion officer role as well, which is around a specialist teacher role. So in terms of our multidisciplinary team, we have the education lens, which is reflected with our inclusion officers, and that's including supported preschool teachers. And then we also have our hearing and vision support partners as well, which supports students with hearing and vision needs and impairments.
It's a big team.
It's a very big team, and we service, so we're divided into 4 networks. So we have Southwestern, Tuggeranong, Belconnen and North Gungahlin, and it's all the way from preschool to Year 12. So our colleges and our preschools, it's all inclusive, and that service is a referral basis. So the way schools can access that service is through our portal, which we have on show for you. But also on this service portal, we have a plethora of amazing resources that
scroll down and have a look at.
Accessible for all of our educators within our system.
It's what's it doing to me? It's not letting me scroll.
So some of the work we look at and focus, we kind of operate.
If I do this, it's still recording.
Great.
So
the way we operate is predominantly off of the universal selected targeted response to intervention approach. So when you look at the types of supports we offer, they all fit within those categories. So the first tab that you can see says NSET request for support, and that is the referral portal. You can have a look, but obviously I'd request not to put it in.
No, absolutely not. We're not going to put anything in there. No.
The second, so that just gives an indicator of what that is. It's really important to note with full transparency with our service that the expectation is the school has had a conversation with the parents or caregivers around the additional assistance they're seeking through Education Support Office, and also that they're an important stakeholder within their child's education and improving the outcomes. So we always operate off of ensuring that all stakeholders are involved in all decision-making processes in support plans and development of. The second tab is the support plans, and we have an example, an exemplar of ILPs, which are a crucial document to support a lot of our students and a great way to capture all the modifications and strategies and differentiation that should be occurring within the class. The second support plan is what we refer to as a behaviour support plan. This plan is incredibly comprehensive and really focusing in that targeted space with response to intervention. It encapsulates a really holistic overview of a student. It's grounded in a lot of evidence-based research with functional behavioural analysis as well to support the decision-making process and the supports through each stage of escalation for students. This plan would only really be seen for students with high levels of frequency and intensity of externalising behaviours where it becomes a bit problematic in the class, and we really need to ascertain what is the function, what is driving those behaviours, because as we reiterate to all of our staff, all behaviour is communication, so it's really important that we understand the etiology behind that behaviour, so then we can address it in a pro-social and appropriate manner to avoid any antisocial behaviours emerging. So there's the template there. It is worth having a look. I really like the stages of escalation. That was a big body of work to be done, because it's quite interesting to see how sometimes we just focus on the escalation stage, but alongside both of those is the lead up to that escalation, but also how do we support that student when they're becoming de-escalated. And I guess our mantra with when we support all of our staff around supporting students with additional needs or complex behaviours is that it's our role as the adult in the room to be the co-regulator and to provide that co-regulation for those students that have unfortunately lost the ability to regulate themselves. And the last plan attached there is our absconding plan, and again it's just an exemplar. These are just plans that we like to provide to guide and support schools. There two other plans down the bottom are really specific around occupational therapy and speech and language, and the eating and drinking plans and manual handling. These students would only have those plans unless it was deemed absolutely appropriate and necessary. They're not plans that a school would just ascertain by themselves. They would need support from our team to write those plans.
Yeah. So we're talking quite profound needs.
Absolutely.
When we hit those plans.
And equipment requirements and HAS.
Yeah, we probably have the health team involved in that. Yeah,
absolutely. And the third tab is the NSET community services. So these are all the external support services that we work alongside and interface with occasionally. Often when we have our social workers will support a lot of our families and communities with some of these. Again, it's a great resource for schools to have in addition to seeking advice and support from our social workers.
Absolutely.
And this is a really fantastic tab, the sensory processing professional learning. So our occupational therapists and speech and language pathologists provide phenomenal high-level professional learning opportunities for our Directorate, and I'd highly encourage people to, if they can, attend. They create a fantastic foundation and knowledge base for a number of issues that you might be seeing in the classroom to unpack why those behaviours are becoming the way they are, especially around sensory seeking and avoiding, and just bringing to the forefront some of our students' needs that aren't necessarily understood from a teacher's perspective, but once we have that holistic allied health lens, it really helps us understand the student as a whole.
Wonderful.
And then the last one, which is a fantastic teacher resource that kind of builds upon all of what we've just discussed in terms of how we utilise all our different lenses, our multidisciplinary lenses, to look at the student as a whole and meet their needs. And there's some great strategies, and so the quick burst movement breaks, we all know how important it is for students to have the brain breaks and movement breaks, how they can get some really positive sensory input if they're seeking that through some quick and easy strategies you can inbuilt within your transitions of your classes and things like that. So they're really practical, handy, and quite achievable within most class settings.
Absolutely. These students will be well aware that I've actually been implementing brain breaks for them the whole semester. So they get absolutely they get a 5 minute at the end of the first hour of their tutorial.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Wonderful. So having had a look through those resources, that's just if these, let's just imagine that my students are now first year art teachers and they're in their class and they have identified a concern around a student and they just want to have a conversation with somebody about what should I do next.
Perfect.
Do they ring you guys?
No, that's a great question. So the way that we encourage our schools to seek our services and support is that there is a bit of a chain of command, so to speak, lack of a better word. So as a classroom teacher, the expectation is that this conversation around concerns you might flag about your student, whether their behaviours are presenting as a bit problematic, or that they've got a high level of disengagement, or that you just feel like they're not being able to access the curriculum on the same basis as their peers, and you feel there might be an imputed or underlying issue, is to first and foremost speak to your executive that's supporting your year level or group, or however that's
or your faculty if you're in high school.
Exactly. Yep. From that discussion with the executive, you'll normally be guided with internally how a school supports those students in utilising the school site, potentially to do an observation. We often encourage a school psych in each high school and primary school really is an extension of our multidisciplinary team, and the expectation is that the schools consulted with their school site prior to putting a request in for us, because there's a number of things that a school should be doing prior to our service, just to ensure that we can value add in that space. So once that discussion's been had with the exec, you might go to the school site for some class ops, and they might either affirm or provide some strategies for you. If from those observations and from the support with the exec, they feel that they might need additional lenses, or they might need a little bit, I always refer to as core and more in terms of the response to intervention lens, then the deputy or principal can put a request for support in through the service portal. So that's the appropriate lines of reporting and seeking a request. It's just to ensure also that there's full knowledge and transparency within the school org system, that everyone's aware of these students, because generally when NSET does get involved, it is predominantly in that really targeted space, and the complexity is quite high. So we often see most of those students that have been identified through NSET will have case management approach. They will have other forms of supports, and will be liaising with potentially Inclusion Ed and even Universal team as well, just to ensure that we've got that wraparound for those students and their needs.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a great introduction to the multidisciplinary teams that are part of the education process. And I'd like to, on behalf of the students and the university, say thank you very much.
Thank you.
To Lisa for her time.
Wonderful. We look forward to seeing a lot of you in our system next year.
Yes.